Falcons have released their initial practice squad, and they got some great news today. So we're going to check it all out on this episode. But let's start with the practice squad here, as the Falcons have introduced 13 names to it, including 3 wide receivers, Dylan Drummond and Chris Blair, both of which were with the team over the summer. Jesse Matthews coming over. Carlos Washington makes the practice squad after losing the RB4 battle with Jace McClellan. Tight end John FitzPatrick returns. A couple of defensive tackles, including the rookie Zion Logue, who was a 6th-round draft pick out of UGA. A pair of offensive linemen, LaCale London. Kenny Oginni, by the way, he is an international pathway player, so he does not count towards the practice squad limit. So basically, they can have 17 players on their practice squad. 2 corners, including preseason standout Natrone Brooks and veteran Kevin King. I fully expect Kevin King to be added to the active roster with his 3 free call-ups in the first 3 weeks of the season. And if an injury pops up, they can put him on the active roster then, or after 3 weeks, they can decide whether or not to keep him all together. And then safety Dane Cruikshank as well being added to the roster. But initial impression from that is, I wish we had some more movement from the Falcons on the waiver wire. I know that ultimately every single fan and fan base hypes up the waiver wire when in reality it's one man's trash, might be another man's treasure, or it could just be the same situation that the team that released that player finds a new team in, which is there's a reason why he didn't make the 53-man. But when you look at the Falcons wide receiver room, only having 5 guys, and one of which is a rookie, one's a core special teamer, and the other one's Kadero Hodge, who, by the way, is also a core special teamer. There's really only 2 receivers on this team that have serious offense experience over the last few seasons, Drake London and Darnell Mooney. They are 1 injury away from having 2 core special teamers in Ray McLeod and Kadero Hodge out there, or a day 3 draft pick out of Illinois, Casey Washington, who had a nice preseason, but every single year, fans and sometimes even teams kind of fall trapped to buying too much into the preseason stock. And then the first-string defense is out there, and, it's not as easy as it was in August. So I'm a little disappointed Atlanta did not go out and land a wide receiver via the waiver wire. I'm sure they did their homework, or I hope they did, and they probably came to some conclusion that there's no one out there that's worthy of an initial 53-man roster spot. You can't take someone from the waiver wire and put them on your practice squad, which I'm sure they would have liked to have done for a couple of guys. But still, I think this whole time, a lot of us and a lot of you commenting down below were pretty gung-ho on going to get another receiver, and it hasn't happened yet, and I sure hope they wake up at some point and go get one, or I pray that no one gets injured, because they are 1 injury away from having a little bit of a crisis in the receiver room. But that's the initial look at the practice squad. Like the initial 53-man roster, it's fluid. You're going to notice guys get added, guys get dropped. So for now, this is the roster. This is the practice squad. They still have some more practice squad spots open, so they'll probably make 1 or 2 more additions over the next few days. But that's an early snapshot of the Falcons 2024 roster. Now, on yesterday's episode, I told you guys we were going to do a sub battle with our Steelers Talk channel here at Chat Sports going into week 1, and they beat us in subscribers off of yesterday's video. We gained 21. They gained 38. The good news is this is not even the first quarter of this battle. We still got 11 more days until the Falcons ship pump the Steelers. So if you want to beat Pittsburgh week 1 and you want to start off 1-0, hit that sub button down below. Now let's talk about the great news the Falcons got today, which is Russell Wilson was announced as the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. That might not be groundbreaking news if you follow the NFL closely, but I'm going to tell you why it's great news for the Falcons and Falcons fans. But first, what's on the menu over at Factor? Factor is the best place for quick, delicious meals that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great-tasting meals. They've got an awesome menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. I'm walking to work pretty much every day now, trying to get myself into a little bit more of a wedding body season because that's coming around the corner for me. And with Factor, it's a great way that I don't have to spend too much time in the kitchen while also still getting delicious food and not breaking the bank in the process. So get started with Factor today. Head to factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 and use code FalconsChat50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code FalconsChat50 at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, so go check them out today and get started with Factor. Jay Glazer, the first one to report that Steelers have made their decision and Russell Wilson will be the starter for Week 1. This is not a big surprise to me. I think going into training camp in the preseason, the expectation was Russell Wilson will be the starter. Then he got injured early on. Justin Fields was making some nice plays here and there. So there started to be a little bit more of a quarterback controversy in Pittsburgh. But on top of Russell Wilson being named the starter, which we'll talk about in more detail in just a moment, there might be a key member of their offensive line out for Week 1. Their guard, Isaac Sumalu, left practice today with an apparent pec injury. So definitely something to monitor because this Falcons pass rush is not filled with Pro Bowls and studs across the board. So every little bit helping. If they're missing one of their better offensive linemen, and sorry for Georgia fans, Broderick Jones has kind of been a little bit of a disaster so far in Pittsburgh. Being down arguably their best lineman period, that would be a tough blow to the Pittsburgh offense. But this is why Russell Wilson being announced the starter is great news for Atlanta. I know that his stats last year, just when you look at it from afar, look pretty good. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,000 yards, completion percentage way up compared to year 1 with the Broncos. But Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons are going to torment Russell Wilson. For starters, Justin Simmons knows how to defend Russell Wilson. He did it every day in practice for 2 years in the Mile High City. So he goes into this game and he goes into every single defensive meeting with, hey, I know how 3 operates, and I'm going to tell you all of his tendencies, all of his bad habits, and we're going to exploit that. But let's take it one step further. Russell Wilson was on track to be a no-doubt Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, honest conversation, I don't know if he makes the Hall of Fame, okay? But there are 3 reasons why I think Russell Wilson has really started to spiral in a downwards pattern. For starters, he holds on to the ball too long. In Seattle, he was always getting sacked, and the belief was he had a bad offensive line. Not that Denver had some top 3 offensive line, but there was a lot of frustration with Russell holding on to the ball too long, taking on too many sacks, the offense falling behind schedule, and then punt after punt after punt. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2, as he gets older, and this is not a criticism, just a little bit of, nature, his athleticism goes down, the mobility decreases, and that's something that he was so good at early on with the Seahawks. He held onto the ball for a while, but he was able to evade pressure and then hit up like Baldwin or Tyler Lockett way downfield for a huge play. He's still holding onto the ball for a long time, but he's not running away from defenders, which is leading to a lot of sacks. But most importantly, it may be the boomer bust element that he had with the Broncos last season. Bear with me, we're going to look at some nerdy analytics here, but what I pulled from 2023 passing depth was the amount of attempts and percentage of passes he had for varying degrees of distance. So, deep downfield passes, 20-plus yards from the line of scrimmage, he had 60 attempts, which last year ranked 11th in the NFL. Now, in your intermediate passing, 10 to 19th, he was 27th. 0 to 9 yards, he was 21st. Behind the line of scrimmage, he had 104 attempts. That was 4th. He's basically running like a college basketball offense. Either we're dunking or we're shooting threes. That works in college basketball. It does not translate to the NFL. If the offense is predicated on we're either going to go 4 verts and deep or we're going to dump it off to a receiver or a running back behind the line of scrimmage, over the course of 4 quarters, the defense knows what to expect, right? They can start to pick up tendencies. They'll either start crowding the box and eliminating the short passes, or they've seen this look 3 times. They know it's all go, 4 verts like it's NCAA, and they're going to have 2 high deep safeties to knock down or pick off any 20-plus yard passes. Here's the extra bad news for Russell Wilson. You want to go deep against Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons? 2 players that have combined for 50 interceptions? That sounds like a recipe for an awful outcome. That's chapter 1 of a book of bad ideas. Trying to go deep, not just against one of these 2, but both of these safeties. And then you factor in how I don't think the Falcons' front 7 is some like Pro Bowl stud-filled group, but it's young, it's athletic, and it's experienced all at once. So they're going to recognize a screen from the experience standpoint, right? You think Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata haven't seen a screen before in their life? And then for the younger guys, they're going to be able to track down a lot of these short passes and take down the backs and the tight ends and the receivers for minimal gains. There's just nothing over the intermediate portion of the field, which is where you could exploit the Falcons a little bit, because outside of A.J. Terrell, there's some question marks at the cornerback position. But if you're not going to throw it 15 yards on a curl route to, like, Mike Hughes' half of the field, how are you taking advantage of this Atlanta defense and its weaknesses? So hopefully no one from Pittsburgh watched that last 3 minutes, and hopefully everyone from Atlanta did, because there are a lot of really good things about the Falcons matchup with Russell Wilson. And if you don't believe me, who did the Falcons lose to last year? Was it Justin Fields with, you could argue, a worse roster in Chicago than what the Pittsburgh Steelers had, since Pittsburgh made the playoffs and the Bears didn't? Or did the Falcons lose to Russell Wilson? Justin Fields was able to beat Atlanta. I would rather go up against Russell Wilson than Justin Fields. And I'm not even afraid of jinxing that. So predict the score for me, Falcons versus Steelers. I'm taking Atlanta in a beatdown. Give me the Dirty Birds 27-10. Now, before we let you guys get on out of here, I got to show some love to the Dirty Birds Club. Jose Santana, Ken Ballard, who is the biggest Saints hater in the entire world, and Trey1222. Shout out to you 3 for being the first 3 members of the Dirty Birds Club. If you want to get on screen and get shout outs for the entire 2024 season, hang out with us during our watch parties like week 1 against the Steelers. $100 super chat, and we'll add your name to the club to get shout outs all year long.